In Luke 15, last week we talked about the prodigal son. And what I wanted to share with you was that this parable is not so much about the son as it is the father. And Jesus is trying to convey to the Pharisees and to those who were standing around, he was trying to paint a picture of them for two reasons. One is he wanted to show one picture of how we all should be. And then he wanted to paint another picture of what they were actually doing. And so last week, in talking about the son who left, he asked his father for his part of his property. Basically, he was telling his father, I wish you would hurry up and die, because I want my stuff now. And so he hurt his father tremendously, but his father did what he asked, and he gave part of his property, or his share of the property, to the son. And the son wandered off to a far country where he went and indulged himself in lavish living and indulging himself in all sorts of things. Well, the son loses all that he has. He has no money. There's a famine. And so he's just trying to make ends meet. He's trying to survive. And so he comes up with this idea in his head. It might be a scheme, it might not. But he thinks to himself, okay, well, I'll go back to my dad. I'll go back there and I'll come up with this elaborate plan where I will tell him, Lord, I've sinned against you, Father, and against heaven, and hired me as a servant, and I'll work for you. And what the son was doing is he was devising a plan not to go back as a son. He was devising a plan to go back as a hired servant, or a hired craftsman. Now, when we get to the story of the older brother in just a moment, that's what I want you to see, because that's how a lot of us live. Is we live with the intention of not drawing to God as a son. We want to draw to God as a hired servant. We want to earn our way back into His good graces. That's not what this parable is about. This parable is about this son. As he comes home, his father's looking out for him. And he sees him coming from a long way off. And the father runs to him, which was shameful. It was extremely shameful for an old man to run in that culture. And it still is in the Middle East. And so he ran. And the word that is used there in the Greek is he sprinted. Can you imagine an old man sprinting? It was unheard of. It was shameful. But he did it. Now, look at the picture that Jesus is painting here. That's what the Father does to us when we're lost. He runs to us. He embraces us. He kisses us. He gives us that intimate encounter that we so look for. And so the son, with this devised plan, he comes to the Father, and he's getting ready to rehearse. He's getting ready to say all the things that he had rehearsed, but he didn't say it all. Because I think that he repented. I think that he realized the love that his father was showing him, and he repented. Because the father brought out the fattened calf, he brought out his best robe, brought out the signet ring or the family ring. He didn't bring him back in as a hired servant. He brought him back in as a son, the son that he had lost. And I think that was the picture that Jesus was painting for his crowd sitting around, for the Pharisees standing around, saying, fellas, this is how we're supposed to be treating these people that we think were on the outside, these people that we think are sinners and are evil. We need to be running and embracing them and telling them that there's a Father who loves them and that He wants to draw them back to Himself and love them and treat them as a son. And that's what He's telling us today. When we see people who are outsiders, those who we consider sinners, those we consider evil? Why are we not running to them and embracing them and letting them know that they too can be found? So now we get to the second part of this and we talk about the older son. Now a lot of times people don't spend too much time on the older son, but I think there's a lot of things about the older son's behavior that really tell us a lot about the current situation in that day. Now, as I said, Jesus was addressing this parable specifically to the Pharisees. Now, you all know how we've drawn a picture about the Pharisees. You know, we don't like them because they're smug and arrogant and they think they're better than everybody else. But in that day, they were highly revered because they did everything they could to obey the law of God. See, they were doing basically what the Son was going to do. That plan that He devised was where I'm going to work my way into the Father's graces. And so this elder son, if you got your Bibles, it's Luke chapter 15, verse 25. Luke 15, 25. And before we get there, let me tell you a couple things about what the older son should have been doing. Now, if you recall, earlier in the chapter, the son goes to his father and he asks for his share of the inheritance or the property. Now, in that day and age, in that culture, houses were very close together. Have any of you ever eavesdropped into another room? Listened to somebody's conversation in another room? Well, thank you for being honest. Well, it would have been very easy to listen in because you could hear everything. You know, if somebody was talking across the street, you could hear it because the streets weren't very wide. So if he was talking in this room and asking his dad for this property, everybody who was anywhere within earshot would have heard what was going on and would have started the rumor mill and the gossip mill, and they would have went everywhere telling everybody what had happened. They would have said, look at this son who is so disrespecting his father. And so they would have heard it all over town, including the older brother. Now the older brother, he should have been in the room with them when this discussion was had. Now, I'm sure the older brother heard it or heard about it. Part of his job was to go in and mediate this conversation. As the older brother, this is what his job was. But you notice he didn't. He didn't mediate anything. What's that tell you about the older brother and his responsibility? And then, another part of the older brother's responsibility was when the younger son was leaving, part of his responsibility as the older brother was to urge him to stay, to work it out. See, in that culture, in that day, they didn't say, I'm sorry. They didn't apologize. What they would do, that mediator, that older brother, would draw the two people in the family together, and he would mediate a truce where neither one of them said, I'm sorry, but they agreed on the solution. That was just the way it was done. That was the culture. All right, so the brother, he did neither. He didn't mediate, nor did he run after the son who was eventually going to be lost. So he's not doing very good at keeping his responsibility. And so now the sons come home, starting with verse 25. It says, now his older son was in the field, and he has came and drew near to the house, and he heard music and dancing. Now, since he's the older brother, and we'll find out in the next verse, he asked somebody, what in the world's going on? Now, they didn't celebrate like this. This would have been very unusual, especially since the older son knew nothing about it. He would have been very, very upset, which he was. It said he heard this music and he heard this dancing. And so he called one of the servants and asked, what's these things mean? I hear all this stuff, I hear all this celebration, but why wasn't I invited? Why didn't I know about this? And so the servant tells him. He said to him, your brother has come, and your father has killed the fattened calf, because he has received him back safe and sound. Now, maybe that should have been a sigh of relief. Wow, here's my younger brother who was just an idiot. And he wasted away all this stuff, and now he's back. But no. He was not thrilled at that, and he didn't care much for the celebration. He especially didn't like the fact that his dad killed the fattened calf. Now that was like that's like coming home and finding that filet mignon that you've been keeping for the last couple of days marinating real good, and it's got bacon wrapped around it, and you're gonna go out there and throw it on the grill with all the fixings. That was what this amounted to. The fatted calf. Now they ate bread every day. They didn't eat fatted calf every day. So he was a little upset that old fattened calf, that filet mignon, had been cooked. And he didn't know nothing about it. So he's very, very upset. He didn't care that his brother had come back. Verse 28 says, but he was angry, and he refused to go in. So that tells us something else about the older brother. We know that there was a celebration. We know that there was music. We know that there was dancing. So we can only assume that there were guests involved, because if we read the first part of this parable, what did when the shepherd come back with the lost sheep, what did he do? He called the people together and said, let's celebrate. When the woman found her lost coin, what did she do? She called the people together and said, let's celebrate. So we should assume that when this son came home, the father got all the guests in the family and said, come, let's celebrate. But the brother, he refused to go in. He said, I ain't going in there. And so he failed at his responsibility as an older brother when the son left, and now he's failing at his responsibility as an older brother when he came back. He didn't care that he was safe. He didn't care that he come back. He didn't care that people were happy. And so he disrespected his father in front of the guests. He disrespected him. But in turn, the father does something extraordinary, just like he did when the son came back. Now the father, typically in that culture, his son would have been shamed because of what he did. But the father did something shameful himself and ran to him. He did something against the culture, against the grain, and did something extraordinary. Now, again, we're going to see the father do something else extraordinary with this elder son. It says, but he was angry and he refused to go in. His father came out and entreated him. That means he begged him. He begged him to come in and celebrate. He begged him. Father, just please, I don't want to go in there. But he's saying, son, please, 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 I want you to come in. Please come in and celebrate with us. In verse 29, here's what the elder brother said. He said, but he answered his father. He said, look, these many years I have served you, and I have never disobeyed your command. Yet you never gave me a young goat that I might celebrate with my friends. Did you pick up what he said? He said, all these many years I have served you. I've never disobeyed a command. I'm going to call him out on that and say, liar, liar, pants on fire. Do you think that he obeyed every command that his father had as he grew up? No. Now, he may have served his father for all these years, but listen to what he said. And think about the picture that Jesus is painting. The elder son said, I have served you. I have worked for you. So by that extension, you should love me more. How many people in the church today have a works-related relationship with the Lord? He wasn't working for his father because he loved his father. He wasn't working for his father because he just wanted to. He was trying to earn grace. He was trying to work for grace. You know, you can do any and everything in the church. You can, we all have our various jobs that we do in the church. But I promise you, God knows your heart. If you're doing it simply for the fact that you think, well, I'm doing all this, I'm earning a check mark by my name, I'm here to tell you, you're wrong. Because God knows exactly why you're doing it. Now, if you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart because you love the Lord and you're serving, then that's great. But you can't work your way into heaven. You can't earn your way into heaven. That's not how it works. Like the younger son who was lost and came back, guess who he had to go through to become a son again? He had to go through the Father. Jesus is painting a picture and putting himself in this role of the Father. What did Jesus say in John 14:6? I know somebody knows it. Come on, somebody tell me.
I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh to the Father but by me.
Yeah, that ring a bell. You know what it is now? You need to mark that verse in your Bible. If you don't know it, you need to memorize it. Jesus said, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no man come to the Father except through me. That's what Jesus is trying to tell them. It's not based on works. You can't earn that. You've got to come to a place in your life where you realize that you're lost and that you need to be found. And so that's what this father here is trying to tell his son. It's not about that. It's not about all these commands that you think you've obeyed. It's not about all this work that you're doing so diligently. He's telling them, I need you to be a son. Not a worker, I need you to be a son. And notice verse 30. He says, but when this son of yours came, he wouldn't even call him his brother. How many of you know people, you look at people who have squandered their life away and you refuse to call them a brother or sister? You refuse to fellowship with them. That's exactly what the Pharisees were doing. And they were grumbling about it because remember at the beginning they asked, why is Jesus sitting and eating and fellowshipping with these tax collectors and these sinners? Jesus is bringing it around full circle. He's telling the Pharisees, he said, you're acting just like the elder brother. You refuse to call these tax collectors and these sinners your brothers and your sisters. How are they supposed to be found, these lost ones, if we're not trying to help them be found? If we're not sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ with them, how will they know? Jesus is telling us what our jobs are. And he's sharing it through this parable. He said, but when this son of yours came, who devoured your property with prostitutes, you killed a fattened calf for him. Now, I'm guilty of this too, and I'm sure probably some of you are too. How many of you look at people because you know their past? Why do you do that?
We're human.
We are human. But why do we do that? Maybe it's the culture we grew up in.
Trying to make ourselves look better.
Trying to make ourselves look better. You may be right, yeah. Yeah. But you know what? We all have a past, don't we? We all do. Some of our past are a little more rough than others. And I'm not going to talk about Mitchell today. But we all have a past. And so when we look at others and we refuse to be brothers and sisters to them, we're acting just like these Pharisees. We're acting just like this elder brother. We're refusing to see their future. All we can see is their past. But we can't forget what our past was like before we were found. We were once dead. We were once lost. Thank God somebody came to us and shared with us the gospel of Jesus Christ, the good news that He died for us. And that He went on that cross to forgive our sins. And that He would remember those sins no more. So whenever we look at somebody who's got a past, just remember that Jesus doesn't look at their past. He's already took care of it. He's already atoned for it. He's already paid the price for it. We shouldn't make someone else pay the price that Jesus has already paid. Jesus wants us to act like this forgiving Father. This gracious Father. To show grace and mercy. And He said to the elder son, verse 31, and He said to him, Son, you are always with me, and all that is mine is yours. It was fitting to celebrate and be glad. For this your brother was dead and is alive. He was lost and is found. Brothers and sisters, we were once that lost son. We were once in that very same place. Let us not be like the elder brother. Let us be like the forgiving Father. Let us show people who Jesus really is. Let us live our life as though we're looking through Jesus' eyes. What would Jesus do? I know that seems cliche, with the bracelet and everything, WWJD. But I don't think we realize how impactful those 4 little letters are and what they represent. What would Jesus do? Every time you see a lost son, a lost brother or sister, remember those 4 little letters and what they mean. What would Jesus do? He would be the forgiving Father, the graceful and merciful Father that He is. We're supposed to be made in the image of Almighty God and live in the image of His Son, Jesus Christ. That is what we're supposed to do. And that's what we need to be doing.